A lot of the time, things are actually way easier than we actually make it out to be. So many people, they have something that's actually doing well, but then they'll be like, nah, I want to try something different.
Meet Muheez, the 21-year-old mastermind behind the growth of some of your favorite online creators and educators. From humble beginnings as a teenage programmer in his bedroom to making millions for clients with his agency, he's been ripping up the rulebook.
It already exists. Like, there's a lifestyle of you making the money you want to make, being in the yard parties that you want to be at, having the cars that you want to be. That reality already exists. So instead of thinking that's something that you have to like obtain, you just have to embody that you already have it.
What did it take to succeed so young within that space?
You have to look at it from the perspective of the way that they think, because it's the inner that first comes first, and then everything out external comes after it. You have a bug in your code, be excited to solve it.
But yeah, bro, I mean, first time I met you, you were 19, shy kid, getting started in the space. You had been in business for a little while, but kind of getting started on where you are now. And to have seen the development over the last 2 years, not just on the financial side and what you've been able to achieve numbers-wise, but especially as a person and how you approach life so holistically, has been amazing to see, bro.
I appreciate that, bro.
Yeah, bro. Super grateful to have you on and be able to have this conversation.
I'm excited to be here, man.
So, I mean, first things first, for people who don't know you, if you could briefly sum it up. Who is Muheez and what does he do?
So I guess the simple answer is I basically run like a simple B2B agency. I basically work with creators, people that have info products, people that, sell coaching programs online that have audiences. I just come in and I basically just help them monetize that. So I can come in, build out systems, manage those systems, and obviously generate a lot of revenue for them. So I particularly work with these guys that, sell coaching programs or info products. We take a rev share, and that's pretty much what my agency does. And then on the side, I do some consulting. I teach people how I do what I do. And obviously, I work with other coaches like a little bit more on a consulting basis as well.
So big on the coaching, consulting, in the info space in general.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into that a lot. But before we do, tell me a bit about how you got into that space in the first place. Because I know you had a journey to get there, and I know your background isn't what the usual, looking to make money online guys would start with.
Yeah, 100%. It's the very like, it's one of those kind of like, those stories where people think like, damn, like how did he even do that? Like those types of stories. So it's kind of one of those, I guess. So I came to the UK when I was around like 13. And when I came, like, basically had like no money, no resources. And every single day in the household, all out here would be like, yo, we need to make more money. We need to do this. We need to do that. And that was everything I heard on a day-to-day. I just got to the point where I was like, you know what, how do you even make this money stuff? So I started searching up ways to obviously make money online on YouTube. I probably wasted like a year just doing random stuff like surveys, all that type of stuff, making like pennies online. I think the most I made was maybe like $5 or something like that, or £5 in the whole year when I was doing all that stuff. But then I came across a video where, so I can't remember the video. I wish I did, because I would love to rewatch it. But the guy just said, yo, if you want to make more money, you just have to give valuable skills. You have to like sell your skills. So you have to learn a valuable skill and sell it to other people. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So I went on Google and I searched, okay, cool, what are valuable skills? I came across programming. So I started with that. Did that for like, a year. I was making like, £500 here, 1K here. I think at my peak, I made like 1K a month, something like that. Then it came to the point where I just got too tired of it and I wanted to do something else. And then I came across, agency from like Iman. He made a video going over it. And I was like, you know what, let me check this out. Both the course, I think that's a split pay because I had like no money. And then when I went through it, I met a bunch of people throughout the way. And one person was really in particular about, hey, you should start a content agency. This is what's really kicking off right now. This was probably like 2023, like when that was really kicking off. So I was like, you know what, let me do it. Start a content agency, got a couple clients. And then those clients also started having more problems. So they were like, yo, like your stuff's really cool, but I'm not making any money from this. How can we make more money from the content? So I was like, okay, let me see if I can implement any systems to get leads and obviously get customers and get sales. And that's when I started researching that. And obviously I started implementing that for some people. First client, when we signed them on, when we built our system, we made like 40K. And then we obviously started taking it from there. Got a bunch of case studies, a bunch of referrals, and now we're here.
Man, what a journey.
Yeah.
And even, before going into the content, the operating, the coaches. So you came in from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned 13 years old, you're hearing about money problems at home, you're trying to figure out how to do things for yourself.
Yeah.
How did school come into the equation? Because I know you dropped out at some point.
Yeah. So I was supposed to go to university, but I didn't. I just didn't go. I went to college and I did IT. But in school, I came in around like year 9 time. I was in school in Nigeria and I was doing decently well there. Then obviously I came here and I had to like learn a bunch of new stuff. The language. Obviously I spoke the language, but the accents and everything like that. So I had to learn all of that. And I think the biggest thing was the people that were chill, but obviously we were never spoken to think about crazy stuff like starting businesses. A lot of us were still in that job mindset. Like I didn't even think about starting a business. I just wanted to make money. I was looking for ways to make money, and obviously in the back of my mind from everything I was hearing in school was, you need to learn a high income skill and obviously work for a job that pays you a lot of money. In my eyes, I wanted to work for like Google, Facebook. That was like my dream. I was like, I need to work for these companies, make 6 figures a year, take care of my family. That's the only thing I thought about. But when I heard about a business, since I didn't really have a friend group in the school where I could talk about, business and making money, I didn't have any I would say per se limiting beliefs around it. I was just like, okay, people are saying you can make money, doing this. If he's saying I can do it, what's stopping me? So that was probably, I think, one of the biggest things that was pretty underrated. I didn't really have much external influences that was telling me I couldn't do it. It was just one person that was saying I could do it, and I believed them, and I just went from there.
Yeah, man, because it's interesting, right? You went into the programmer side of things
Yeah.
to learn a skill, as
Yeah.
you said, right? And then you managed to implement it. You were at 1K a month. At what point did you realize, this isn't going to cut it, A? And B, what did that period where you did do programming, how did that add to your journey and what you've been able to do since?
Yeah. So I think what was really cool about the programming stuff was there's a lot of stuff that I had to learn, because it's like you're learning a new language, you're learning a new complete skill, you're making a bunch of different mistakes, and you learn a bunch of stuff. And I was grateful that the person I learned it from was a really good mentor, and they kept repeating that you want to get excited every time you make mistakes. You want to get excited anytime something goes wrong, because when something goes wrong, there's an opportunity to obviously fix that problem and then never have that issue again. So I kept hearing that every single day, problems are good, problems are good, problems are good. So when issues would arise in, let's say, business or just life in general, I wouldn't really have a emotional reaction to it. I'll just be like, cool, this is part of the game. I've been here before. And I feel like if I didn't have maybe that 200 to 300 hours worth of programming, I probably wouldn't even be here right now, to be honest. So consuming that literally just honestly changed my life. And to answer your question on, what made me switch back, I got to the point where I realized I wasn't really getting paid as much as I would have liked. I'd be working, because when you're coding, you're physically tapping on a computer, you're making stuff. I got to the point where I was like, bro, I'm doing so much work and I'm not really getting paid more than £15 an hour. You know what I mean? Which is cool, at maybe 17, 18, but I was like, there's probably way more to this. So my goal was, I was trying to figure out ways to be more productive. So I searched on YouTube how to be more productive. And I came across Iman, and he was saying, you can start this business model. I was like, okay, cool, let me check this out. Went through the rabbit hole, and then obviously now we're here.
Yeah, man. It's a journey, but I think you said it. Those 200, 300 hours that you put into programming not only influenced the way you approach things, but your mindset in general, right?
Yeah, I think I put a lot more, but that was just the course itself. So the course was 200 to 300 hours. But obviously the hours I put in was way more than that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, goes to show.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And when it comes to starting agency, going into the niche specifically that you went into, coaches and consultants, I know back in the day was the hot niche to be going into, and nowadays it's even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But the business model as a whole, it's something that I know gets a lot of bad rep, people questioning, what is this? Is this a scam?
Yeah.
XYZ. So if you had to break down, I mean, would you say you're a growth operator? Is that the title you give?
I just say it's an agency, honestly. I just think it's like a B2B agency, because that was what it was being called before. I think, obviously there are certain people that popularized that term to make it sound different to what it was. But when we were doing it, it was just called a normal agency. We were just I think it was like an extension of content and appointment setting agency. That's kind of like what they were calling us back then. So I just described it as like, yeah, I'm a B2B agency owner. I work with education companies, consulting companies, coaching companies, which is basically what they are. I just don't like to, put that term to kind of like describe what I do, because there's been people doing it way before it was called that, and obviously I feel like that term has a negative connotation, because obviously there's a bunch of beginners. I just say it's a educational company, and I work with B2B, educational creators and coaches and consultants. So yeah.
And we spoke about this yesterday, but this is a space that a lot of the big guys
Yeah.
are getting into. It was something that was more niche, something that was more protected, and now a lot of people are speaking about it, trying
Yeah.
to get others on it. Why do you think that is, and where do you see that going?
I feel like people start to realize how much money there is in this space. I feel like now that the bigger guys have been more open about how much they actually make from info businesses, I think it's opened like the floodgates for people to be like, oh wow, it's actually not as difficult. And the upside to obviously, launching consulting offers and just selling your information is extremely high. There's guys like, Jordan Watch started doing it. See, you got Elon, you got a bunch of different guys that are now just selling coaching programs, teaching other people what they've been doing. But they have been doing it before. Like, that's how they made all the money. But I think now they're being super public about it, like very open about it. So now people are trying to understand, okay, cool, how can I get into it? I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just think now the space is just going to be a little bit more focused on the people that are actually good at what they do. So I think it's only going to benefit the people who are at the top that know what they're doing. And then the people at the bottom, it's going to become harder and harder, because those people who are starting to get into it are exposed to better information now than there was before. Because back, let's say if you go back like 2.5 or 3 years ago, the information on how to scale a consulting company or an educational product it was just horrible back then. There was no one really giving good information apart from like the top killers. Now, some people out there giving actually decent information. So I think, the level of sophistication is just rising up, which every market does at a certain point. So I think info is just starting to catch up.
And you mentioned, now it's going to be something harder to get into. It's
Yeah.
going to kind of cut out the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
How do you think you were able to succeed? What did it take to succeed so young within that space?
I think obviously I came in at I won't say it's the perfect time, but at a decent time where there wasn't really that many people like doing it. Like, you wouldn't search the word, the growth operating term and see like 100 people. Like, no one even knew what that was. Like, there wasn't a ton of people doing it. But I think what really made me stand out is I just did the basic stuff, and I obviously didn't like change what I was doing like midway through. There was a bunch of people that would go after that niche, and obviously they wouldn't sign a client in like, first 1-2 months, and they would just completely pivot and be like, yeah, everyone's doing it, I just switch out. But I remember those guys saying everyone's doing it 2 years ago. If they came now, they would be like, yo, what's going on here? So I think that was one of the biggest things, not obviously like switching during that period. And then I think the second thing was just honestly just basic principles. A lot of the time, things are actually way easier than we actually make it out to be. Because when you get told, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, this will happen, so just do that. Some people will try deviate from it, or some people will try change something because they're so used to trying new things based on like, how the brain has been like wired. Everyone wants to try new stuff. But a lot of people don't do the same thing for 6 to 12 months. A lot of the guys that we did really well for, they did the same thing for like 6 to 12 months straight. We didn't do anything different. We didn't, play around with different, strategies, funnels, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you try stuff, but you don't play around with a bunch of stuff when you figure out something's working. So I feel like I just didn't change most of the things that were working for me at that time until I had to, or until, I think there was something that was going to be way better. And that honestly helped me a ton. So, yeah.
And in terms of skill sets wise, what do you think people actually need to know to be able to do well within that space?
I think, honestly, it might be shocking. I think, honestly, most of the things you can learn can come from one book or from one course or one YouTube video. What ends up happening is people always like to make new stuff. There's always a new funnel that came out. There's always a new Instagram technique to get story views. There's always a new YouTube technique to get more calls. There's always a new sales call process. There's always new stuff. Every month there's going to be something new that people are going to try, new ad strategy, etc., etc. So what always happened, and I saw this happen thousands of times, not even thousands, maybe hundreds of times, where people would have clients, something's clearly working. What they have to do is just put more fuel to the fire. And they're like, Muheez, what do you think of this strategy? I'm like, bro, you're making 50K already doing this strategy. Why do you want to switch to something else? Oh, I think it's better. Why do you think it's better? I don't know. This guy said it's better. And then they switch, and then I tell them no, but sometimes people don't listen, and you switch to it, and then they end up making no money. And then they're like, oh, maybe it didn't work. And I'm like, bro, why did you switch what you were doing? And then they have to build up all that momentum back from what they were previously doing. And then they have to obviously change it. I think Alex Omozi even talks about this a lot. Like, it happens all the time. So many people, they have something that's actually doing well, but then they'll be like, nah, I want to try something different. And it happens all the time. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, it's because we could say skill set wise, but I think honestly the skill set to skill in info business is like 50K. You can get that in a 4 or 5 hour course. Like, it's not that difficult if you know what you're doing. People just don't have the perseverance to just do it for a long time.
That's fair, man. Yeah, I think, a core message you put across there is just the consistency.
Yeah.
Right? And the compound effect of being able to stick at something for a long time and seeing it through.
100%. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things, man. Like, I've just seen so many people literally have something work and just kill it off because they want to try something new.
And for pretty much as long as I've known you, I know you've been doing coaching calls yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have your program. I know you've taught in other programs over the years as well. And, teaching, again, I met you at 19.
Yeah.
And you were already jumping on coaching calls, teaching people sometimes 10 years older than you how to do certain things. So I guess in general, what's your approach towards teaching people and like the experiences you've had as like quote unquote mentor?
Like a mentor, yeah. I think the biggest thing is being able to just kind of dumb stuff down to like a very like granular level where people can understand it. Because what ends up happening is most coaches or people that, try to mentor other people, they only see stuff from like one lens. They don't see it from anyone else's lens. So something can make complete sense to, let's say, like a programmer, for example. He can be like, you might be coding something. You're like, look, bro, I have this problem. What is it? And then a random engineer is like, yeah, your React component is messed up. Do this and change that. You're not going to understand what he's saying. You're going to be like, bro, what is this guy talking about? But if you can speak their language and be like, look, this is what's going on here. You need to change this. It makes it easier to understand. So I think that was one of the biggest things. Like, for a long time, I was speaking my language and some people just wouldn't understand. But I started dumbing my stuff down and trying to make things a little bit more simpler to understand to other people. And I started doing really well. And a lot of the times I think with coaching, a lot of it is honestly just like validation and just reassurance that you're doing the right thing. Because sometimes people don't really realize, but a lot of the information, they kind of know the answers to it anyways. Like, some people, they ask me a question, they answer the question themselves when they ask it. And I call it out. I'm like, you just answer your question. So I think a lot of it is just like, they just want to know that they're doing the right thing. Like, they're paying you, or like they're seeing you as like a high level of like, you've achieved what I want to achieve, or you've helped someone achieve what I want to achieve for this person. I know your stuff is good. This is what I think I should do. Is it correct? And you just honestly have to say yes or just reassure them at that point. So I feel like nowadays, especially when I'm doing it for a little bit more smarter people that have gone through content and stuff, that's honestly the extent of the coach, just reassuring and just making like final tweaks to most of the things. So yeah.
Yeah, man. Because no, I agree. It's the validation point, right? And being able to almost trust yourself. And I know this is something, I wanted to ask you about in general. I guess we can pivot into that. But this notion that you have the answers, that intuitively things come to you much easier than you'd think. And I remember even yesterday we were speaking, you told me you don't watch anyone's stories. You're not listening to what other people have to say because you give more value to thinking things through yourself and knowing that you have the answers within you.
Yeah.
So what's your approach to that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I'll use this analogy to describe it. So imagine you have a son and you're trying to teach him like football, for example. And let's say you want him to, let's say he's like 6, 7 years old. He can walk, he can play football. You want him to like just be good. What most people would do is they'll try to like overcoach the person and try to like create so many variables that they have to think about when the person is just starting out. So they'll go to the kid and be like, look, you need to worry about your touch. You need to make sure your movement is on point. You need to make sure you're shifting in the right direction. You need to make sure you're using this side of your leg instead of this side. But for some people, which might seem like, a way that doesn't make sense, you could just go to a kid and be like, look, here's the ball. You can only use your legs. Here's a goal. Score goals. Here are obstacles. You need to avoid them. what's gonna happen is the kid's gonna learn way faster because they're gonna just fail a bunch of times and be like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do this. I should probably do that. I should probably do this. But when you're trying to like really instill a belief to someone, you're trying to like dial into like how they should play. What ends up happening is they overcomplicate it for themselves. You know what I mean? So what I realized is a lot of people don't trust their natural ability, and it's not because it's their fault. They've just been in situations where they haven't had to rely on their natural ability. They've always had someone telling them, "Hey, this is exactly what you have to do." School have told them, you know, their parents have told them, they've told them every single thing they need to do. So they don't rely on their natural ability a lot. So they will come to you being like, yo, is this correct? But in reality, they knew the answer. It's the same thing with a child. Like the child will figure out that he probably can't pick the ball off of his hands and throw it to the goal. He'll figure that out very quickly. So you don't have to like really dive into that when they're super young, because what ends up happening is then they create an over reliance on like your coaching and they can't trust the natural ability. It's the same thing, you know, it's a little bit off topic, but the best football players you will see, they're the ones that they don't get really coached that much. They just kind of let them do their thing because it's their natural ability. They haven't really taken that out of them. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I would describe it.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think, even going back to what you were saying earlier in terms of people pivoting, not lasting too long in a space, shiny object syndrome, always looking for the next thing. If you kind of apply what you just said there, if they're being overstimulated by different types of advices on what they should do, which direction to take, pivot into this is the new hot thing, this is what works well, this offer, this structure, this, that, naturally you start getting restless, no?
Exactly. You just honestly need to know the rules. That's why I tell people you need to know the rules and the fundamentals, and then everything else can just be like left to just kind of like perception. Like for example, same thing. Let's say you're teaching someone sales. You just need to know the rules of like, hey, in sales, this is exactly what you're trying to do. Whatever question, whatever sequence you use, you just want this outcome. So you can go and get that outcome. It's the same thing with football. It's like, yo, this is exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to score a goal with your legs. So whatever you do to get that outcome, it doesn't matter. You just have to get that. You get what I mean? And then you obviously tell them the normal rules, like, you know, offside stuff, whatever. But once you have the rules and you have the playing field, you can get creative and you can start thinking about stuff. But when you start getting super granular into like the details of the funnels, blah, 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 you're going to start overcomplicating that stuff for yourself. You're going to create variables that didn't even exist. You just created them for yourself, and you're not going to get to your goal. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen it happen many times. Like, for example, anytime I build a funnel, the way I look into, okay, cool, is the funnel going to work or is this not going to work? I just look back to fundamentals. Fundamentally speaking, we're trying to create the least amount of friction possible for someone to book a call. Does this add a ton of friction? If I think it does, I'm not going to do the funnel. It doesn't have to be like, yo, let me try the strategy, blah, blah, blah. It just comes down to the rules. It's the playbook, the principles. If the principles are not aligned with what this thing is teaching, I'm not going to do it. So that's the same thing that comes down to like, you know, scaling coaching programs or just life in general. People don't really look at that. But that's where I rely on my natural ability of like, okay, cool, I know the principles. I just need to make sure everything aligns with the principles, and I think it'll be fine.
Amazing, man. Yeah, because, we recorded a podcast almost 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And I was watching this back in preparation to this. And at the time, a big thing that you were speaking about was mastery.
Yeah.
Right? Wanting to dial into what you were doing and get extremely good at it.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you're describing essentially intuition, right? And being able to learn how to do something without constraining yourself in different ways. How did the mastery journey that you went on to actually be able to improve in what you were doing in your field at the time lead you to these kinds of conclusions in terms of trust myself more, in terms of learn the rules and allow myself to kind of go through it rather than getting bogged down? Because naturally, if you're gonna approach getting super good at this one thing, it would make sense to listen to what everyone has to say, process information. But yeah, how did this approach kind of come to you?
So it started to happen when I started to make like decent money, like, you know, 20, 25K, working with different clients, consulting. I started to realize something. I kept repeating myself a lot. I kept saying the same thing every single day to the same people. And I started to realize, wait a minute, maybe all of this is just all the same frameworks. The only difference is just who I'm applying it for and like what we're actually doing. So then it really came down to understanding that everything is all just like fundamentals. Like, for example, let's say trying to make someone buy, like Persuasion, the book that was made, let's say in the 1800s about persuasion, is probably what's still gonna work today because humans haven't really changed that much, like over that huge period. So when you really come down to that, as long as whatever you're trying to do, like whatever funnel, whatever system, whatever ads you're trying to do will hit those things of like, this is how you make someone curious, this is how you make someone click, this is how you make persuade someone, this is how you make someone buy. As long as you're hitting these fundamentals, whatever you're doing, it doesn't really matter. Everyone has different funnels, everyone has different systems, but no one looks back to the fundamentals. So I looked at that and I was like, wait a minute, I'm just saying the same stuff over and over again. So what I was really looking for was just mastery of the fundamentals. And then once you have that, you can just start building upon it. You can start trying new stuff, being like, okay, cool, this is my fundamental that I need to make sure I hit. I can try this funnel because I think it will help do this. And if you keep doing that, you're going to have a lot of insights into making stuff work better. And that way, you're not going to be really guessing because you just look back and be like, okay, cool. If I was a human being, would this work for me? Probably not. I'm not going to do it. If I was a human being, would this work for me? Probably would. I'm going to do it. So, yeah.
I like that, man. Yeah, and it's less about the how, more about the what in that sense, right? And even, on that kind of track, you also said at the time that you described yourself as a bit of a mindset junkie.
Yeah.
Right? And, I know you've read a lot.
Yeah.
I know you've gotten into metaphysics as well.
Yeah.
And everything on that side. But, I mean, one place to take that, what did the process of actually improving your mindset and like what people describe as working on myself, like what did that look like for you?
I think you have to kind of get clear on what you truly want and like why you're doing the stuff in the first place. I think you have to be honest with yourself because at the end of the day, everyone has like intentions. Sometimes people don't realize people have other people's goals that they're striving for. Like people will be like, yeah, I want to go to uni. They don't really want to go to uni because their parents are saying you should go, so they think they want to go. And that's what happens. So people are not really clear on those goals specifically. So once you become clear on that, you just have to honestly just figure out what type of identity you want to have. Let's say like your best self, like how much money do you want to be making, what type of lifestyle do you want to be living, etc., etc. And then you just have to almost act like you already have that, like almost kind of like embody that lifestyle, because it kind of sounds like woo woo, but it already exists. Like there's a lifestyle of you making the money you want to make, being in the yard parties that you want to be at, having the cars that you want to be. That reality already exists. So instead of thinking that's something that you have to like obtain, you just have to embody that you already have it. Like the types of decisions that someone like, the Antonio that's making whatever amount is making, what would he do in this situation? How would he react? How would he think? And if you embody that, it just naturally comes to you. You just have to see your end goal as something that is just going to happen anyways. It's just unfolding. Everything around you is just unfolding around you to kind of get the goal that you're looking for. So, yeah.
Be before you can become.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. No, I think that's perfectly put. And again, when it comes down to the practical, like actually digesting this lesson for yourself, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
maybe someone's heard this. It's like, how can I almost pretend to put myself in this place if it's so far away, etc.? Like, how would you recommend someone actually exposing themselves to these kinds of ideas and then being able to take them on for themselves?
So the first thing you have to do is you don't have to like expose to the whole thing. People have this misconception that, if I want to be making 100K a month, like, and my 100K a month version of me is driving a Lamborghini, I need to buy a Lambo. And it's not really how it works. You have to look at it from the perspective of the way that they think, because it's the inner that first comes first, and then everything external comes after it. So people start thinking they need to be around a ton of external stimuli to obviously embody that type of lifestyle, but that's just not the case. You have to kind of like have that internal, and that internal is just simply the way that the person thinks. So that's the first thing they really need to dive into. So for example, if let's say, you want to be making, let's say 100K a month, for example, let's say just put a random number there. You don't want to be telling yourself, oh, the 100K a month version of me already has enough money to solve this problem. They have enough money to buy this apartment. So it doesn't make sense to think like that. I'm not even there yet. You have to look at it from the perspective of like, okay, cool. If the 100K a month version of me was within my position right now, he lost everything. The 100K a month version lost everything. He's starting like where I'm starting right now. What would he do in this situation? The 100k more version would probably look at it and be like, okay, cool, what skill sets can I learn? What can I buy here? 100k more version of me might be like, oh, I can't buy this right now. It doesn't make sense. I need to like wait for this because I need to use the money to invest into something like that. So you have to just embody the thinking process, not necessarily the whole external stuff that goes with it. Because once you have the thinking process, everything else just unfolds behind you. So I feel like that was one thing that I always had to learn as well. I used to think, well, it doesn't make sense. 100k more version of me would be able to pay for this problem and not have it. But 100k more version of you, let's say they lost everything, you have to start, they still have that thought process. The mindset doesn't go away. So that's how you have to look at it.
Beautifully put. And another thing I wanted to touch on, in one of the videos that I watched of yours, you said something along the lines of you need to believe in yourself, that you can do so much more than you can even fathom.
Yeah.
And you just need to think about the goal more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd love for you to speak a bit about self-belief and,
Yeah.
The mindset you embody in the first place.
Yeah. So obviously, like I think I said before, I didn't really have much external stimuli that was telling me I couldn't do it. Like I just had one YouTube video from a guy that I wanted to be like, and he was basically saying, yeah, you can do it. So that was my belief. So I didn't really have any like external influences, because I would imagine people that, grew up with people that are not where they want to be. They're telling them, you can't do this, you can't do that. I didn't really have a bunch of you can'ts in my life. So I think I was very blessed with that. So obviously that allowed me to not really have any sort of like roadblocks between the way. But I think that focusing on the goal thing was something I started to realize, where I started to look at people that were like super successful, like, guys that, let's say not even our fields, like just random fields, like let's say athletes or football players. A lot of the times, all they just think about is just like one thing and one thing only, just winning and just scoring. Like that's literally it. Like for example, you ask a guy like, let's say Cole Palmer, for example, like, oh, how'd you score the free kick? Oh, don't know. Just, I thought I could score from there, so I tried it out. That's the only thing he was thinking about, just to go. He wasn't thinking about, I should curve it like this, I should try this, I should try that. It's like, yo, here's the target, I need to hit it. Same thing that you would tell a 6-year-old, yo, here's the ball, there's target, go hit it. But if, let's say you ask someone, no one's going to really say, yeah, I was doing this specific strategy, I did this, and then I did that, and then all these things unfolded. Ask a basketball player, Stephen Curry, how'd you hit that? I just shot it and then went in. That's literally how these people think. And I started to notice these patterns, and I was like, oh, wow. It all just comes down to just focus, because when you focus on the goal and you just trust your natural ability, the easiest path just ends up unfolding for you. The path of what you should do and how you should get there, things just start happening for you, starts unfolding. Unless you've experienced it, it's very hard to describe it, but you just have to trust me on this one. Like, it just unfolds when you focus on the goal. All you think about is just, I want this thing. What's the best way to get there? I trust myself to get there, because I've probably already got there before in a different reality, or whatever you want to say for that. How am I gonna get there? And things are just gonna start unfolding for you. You'd be very shocked. So yeah.
Are you the type of person that has never felt any doubt in themselves?
No, I've never felt any doubt. I still feel like everyone feels doubt to a certain extent, but I think you have to kind of like be self-conscious and be like, is it really doubt, or is it just, what actually is it? Because a lot of the time it's just uncertainty. Like, I think doubt and uncertainty, I don't know if I would say the exact same thing, but like uncertainty is just like, oh, I don't know if maybe this thing might work if I try it out. Like, you're not aware of all the things that could potentially happen, so you're basically uncertain. But it's the same thing. Like, someone can see one thing and see, like, uncertainty. Someone can see one situation and see uncertainty. Another person can see one situation and see, a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential to actually grow. So it all comes down to how you look at it, because you're always going to feel like you don't know a lot of stuff. Like, that's just how it is. You're never going to get away from that feeling. It's always going to be there. The only thing that has actual meaning is the emotional weight you put on it. And when you put the emotional weight of doubt and uncertainty, it's gonna feel scary. But if you put the emotional weight of, no, I'm actually excited, I want to see what happens here, we're gonna do it. You get what I mean? It's like, for example, if let's say there's two kids and they're in like a haunted house, for example. Let's say one kid's super scared. He's like, yo, I don't want to go in there, it's too scary. But the other person's super excited. He's like, yeah, I want to check this out, I want to see what's in there. It's the same haunted house they're in. It's the same situation, but one person is excited, the other person is scared. So what's actually going on there? It all comes down to the perception. So doubt and uncertainty, I just think is just perception, to be honest. I don't really think it's an actual emotion. It just comes out because with that haunted house example, both people are experiencing the same thing. But why is one person excited? Why is the other person scared? comes down to perception. So yeah.
Very well put. And even, I mean, you mentioned emotion.
Yeah.
You know, you come across as someone who is very in control. I don't know if stoic is the right word, but something along those lines.
You say so, yeah.
Someone very much in control of their emotions. From at least what I've seen and experienced across life with people, that's not really the status quo, right?
Yeah.
People tend to let their emotions take control of them, make emotionally charged decisions. You're someone who's very calculated, think a lot about what you do. Is that something you've been able to intentionally cultivate over time, or did that come naturally to you?
Started intentionally cultivating it when I started becoming aware of the bullshit I was telling myself. Because, like I said before, a lot of the things that you would experience, it's all just emotional reactions to the certain things. Like, for example, it's the same thing with the haunted house example. Let's say you're playing football, for example, and, let's say you're losing and someone kicks the ball at you to just kind of like, put it on you and be like, hi, you guys are losing. And you get super mad at the person. You get super angry. But let's say, for example, you're still losing, but let's say someone kicks the ball at you. You're just like, whatever, man. You're just like going through your day. But the same thing happened to you, but you have different reactions. So it's the it's the reaction that you have that has the emotional weight that people experience. So a lot of the time, I would have situations and be like, feel sad and feel annoyed. And then what would end up happening is what I would see is just sadness and annoyance. Like I'll just see that. But when I start looking at it from the perspective of like, okay, cool, this happened to me. How can I use this to obviously help me scale or help me go further? This is actually pretty exciting. I'm glad this is even happening in the first place. Like this problem came in, how can I fix it? And that also came back from, I didn't really understand like the higher version of it, like, the you could call it like the metaphysical version of that. I just understood the normal version, which was you have a bug in your code, be excited to solve it. And that's why I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty exciting. Like I want the problems. Like what's going to come out to me? Because a lot of people don't even realize when you're in business, you're literally getting paid to solve problems. People don't even realize it. Like it's literally in the business. So you're supposed to have problems all the time. People complain, oh, things always don't work. That's kind of the name of the game. The only reason it will get annoying is just the emotional weight you put behind it. So yeah.
And there's that Elon quote, something along the lines of, you get paid in proportion to the size of the problems you can solve.
Yeah.
So
because it's a problem solving business.
Literally that. And, when you're speaking about perception, when you're speaking about the way you frame things to yourself, I chose to call this podcast Delusion by Design.
Yeah.
I know it's a word, I've heard you use before. I'd love if you could speak a bit about delusion, how you see it, and what it means to you.
Yeah, to me, it's just more like not being afraid of like being uncertain. You get what I mean? Because delusion is just kind of like thinking that you're going to get your way no matter what. It's that kind of like cockiness where you're like, I'm going to get my way no matter what. And obviously you embody that like knowing of like your reality already exists. Like, I'm going to get there no matter what. So everything that's just happening is just, a result of what I have to experience to get to where I want to be. So when you have that, when you truly believe that, you stop really caring as much when problems happen. And obviously when you start truly believing that all these problems and all these things around you are just here to facilitate you getting to your goal, you really stop caring that much, bro. Like, especially like about silly things. Like, for example, I can't get shut down or something. I'm like, bro, I'm going to solve this and I'm going to make sure that I can never get shut down again for these types of reasons because I know what to do next time. Something happens. Let's say a client is like unhappy with something. What are they unhappy with? What can I do to make sure that they're even happy? You get excited to even talk about these things. You get excited for hard conversations because you only have those like weight of emotions when you put emphasis on it, when you have that like bad feeling around it, you have that aura of like, damn, I don't really want to do this today. I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to speak to this client. But it's all just in your head because there's another version of you that's excited. It's like, cool, let's see what this guy's got to say today. What can I solve that's going to help me make my life 10 times easier later down? And when you truly embody that lifestyle, nothing really gets honestly in your head. There's guys that probably overtake 10 times more stress than I do and they feel fine. But then someone else could be put in their shoes and have an emotional breakdown and almost want to just like not exist. But if they're going through the same problem, what's the difference then if it's the same problem? It just comes down to perception. You get what I mean?
Beautifully put. No, I love that. And I think, again, bro, it's funny, right? Because, I mean, I've done a lot of reading. I know other people who have too.
Yeah.
But I think it's very clear when people have done reading and can speak about it versus when they've consumed information in any form and actually embody it. And I think you are a perfect example of someone who has taken these concepts that you've just spoken about, applied them to your own life, and really lived them yourself,
Yeah.
which is awesome to see.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you. Thank you.
And, just on mindset, one last thing I wanted to touch on is vision boards, envisioning things in general, right? Because I remember a while back looking at your laptop background and you had a bunch of stuff written on there, some
Yeah.
pictures. Even yesterday when we were speaking, you mentioned the concept of having a clear path and knowing exactly where you want to get to.
Yeah.
As a concept more so than for yourself specifically. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to know a bit about how visualization kind of played a role in your story.
Just kind of like knowing what you want. Like it comes down to like really knowing what you want and why you want it in the first place. And you have to be completely honest with yourself. And if they align with the thing that you're really trying to get to, a lot of the things that you want, you just have to remind yourself that you have it. So I kind of like have that there, not to really signal that it's something that's super attainable, but something that I already have. Like for example, I think like probably 70 to 80% of the thing I had on that like screenshot, I can probably buy it tomorrow if I really wanted to. But I just have it there to make myself feel like, yeah, I have it. It's like it's right there. It's super attainable. It's not even on a pedestal. But I think people use vision boards in the wrong way, where they put it on such a high pedestal and they're like, oh, I really want to achieve this. This is going to be something I really need to hit. But if you make it seem like you just already have it, which is why I just like looking at it, because I'm like, yeah, it's already there. It doesn't seem like a huge like ordeal. So that way it kind of comes like natural. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh, I like that. And even, you touched on there the clarity and the why, basically, right? And again, going back to our talk a couple years ago, I saw that you said that your why at the time was to be completely free and not have to worry about finance and relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, firstly, have you achieved that in your eyes?
I guess you could say so, yeah. Like in terms of like completely free, obviously there's a bunch of stuff that I would obviously love to do as well too. But when it comes to like finances stuff, like I'm pretty good. Like I'm okay. When it comes to like finances and all those types of things, like a lot of the things I wanted to get that I've been able to do, like I pay for like, the rent at my household. I pretty much pay for all the things over there. Have high expenses, but every month it doesn't really like attack me, you know what I mean? Because I have the money to obviously pay for that type of stuff, and I can eat what I want, I can go to where I want, I can travel business when I want, or etc. etc. So it's a nice feeling, but I think back then that was really what I wanted to achieve, and then when I achieved that, I was just like, oh, that's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the second question I was going to ask. What did it mean to you when you first kind of clocked that you had kind of crossed that line?
I didn't even notice it, to be honest. Like, I think it ended up coming to me when, for example, there would be situations in the family household and they'll be really stressing. Like, for example, we're trying to do some stuff to obviously like sort some visa things for like my father or whatever, and they would really stress about it. But I'm just like, bro, it's not that crazy, you know what I mean? Like, I would pay for the legal fees, would pay for all those types of things, and I did that, and it didn't really hurt. You get what I mean? Like, I just paid it and it was completely fine. It wasn't cheap at all for whatever reason, but sometimes, it's, you just have to remind yourself that you're not in that position anymore. Because obviously when external people are saying, oh, money's tight, stuff like that, when you've heard that for so long in your life, it's really hard to break out of it. But once you break out of it and you just start being like, no, you're actually pretty good, you're completely fine, I think that's when like a lot of things start really happening for the better. So yeah.
And with that being your why back then, having kind of like crossed the line, but at least achieved a baseline where that's no longer, a fight or flight kind of situation.
Yeah.
What drives you now? What's your why now?
There's obviously more stuff that I'd like to achieve. Like, let's say, I don't know, you could say like there's materialistic things I want to get and all that type of stuff. But I think now my big thing is just like really just like getting really good at this type of stuff. Like getting to the point where it's like I'm still chasing like, mastery and still obviously trying to be like the best at what I do, just getting as good as possible. And I feel like everything else is just gonna flow from there. And obviously there's a lot of things I want to do for like parents and all that type of stuff that obviously there's gonna be more money that would be needed to do that type of things. And I think, with the plays I'm doing with the, the AI company and all that type of stuff, I think I can actually get to that point very quickly. So yeah.
We'll touch on the AI in just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
But just before that, in terms of money
Mhm.
specifically,
Yeah.
I know you've made great money for yourself at your age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know specific numbers even in terms of what you're doing. If you want to clickbait the title, here's
Yeah.
the chance.
Yeah.
But you came from a situation where that was a scarcity.
Yeah.
Now you're in a situation where thankfully that's in a good place. How would you say money has changed you throughout the process?
I don't really think it changes people, but I think it just amplifies them. I think that's what money does. Like, for example, people, they say, oh, this person got money and now he's like a horrible person. No, I think they were just probably horrible, like, for a while. They just had more means to obviously show it. So I don't think it really changes. I think it amplifies, how people truly are. Like, for me, one of the biggest things I really like was just like, being able to have comfort and just kind of like do what I want whenever I want type of thing. Sounds kind of basic, but that's kind of the thing I wanted to do. Like, I've always wanted to get these things and be like, I hated the feeling of not being able to get it. And now that I obviously have the money to do that, for example, using Ubers to just do whatever I want, or just like eating at any place I want as well, to not having to look at the bill, buying whatever types of clothes I've always wanted to buy. Like, that type of stuff is like, I think the cool stuff that gets amplified, like, because I already thought like that. I already wanted those things. So money just allowed me to do those things. So I don't think it really changes much. I only think it just amplifies your true character. And obviously, if your true character is like, you care about people and you actually want to like do the best for them, you reflect that when you have money. Like, for example, being able to buy my mom nice things, take my, my family to like nice trips, all that type of stuff. It just gets amplified because now you have the actual capacity to do it. So yeah.
The means to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on family there at the end, family relationships. I know that's something you wanted to dig into. I guess you can take it in whatever direction you like, but how's that side of life kind of treated you, especially more recently after the last couple of years?
Yeah. I think there's more respect now. I think now people start to obviously know, okay, cool, like, he's not silly. You get what I mean? I remember when I wanted to get the program, the agency program, like probably 2.5 years ago, maybe 3. It was this huge discussion, like, oh, it's not gonna work. He's just gonna take your money and sit on the beach. He's not really gonna do anything with it. But I just still had that delusion. I was like, it's gonna work. And now, obviously, there's huge respect. Like, for example, I think they get scared thinking about what would have happened if they said no at that time and they didn't help me out with, the investment to obviously learn the skills that I have now. So it's like, I think now there's a little bit more respect there. And obviously, they don't want to like obviously intrude in like the things that I do, and like obviously do things that could potentially stop it. Like, for example, if I'm like, hey, I need a break, I just need to go for like a week, whatever, they'll be completely fine. They're like, yeah, do whatever you want, because obviously I'm like the major breadwinner. So it's cool. But obviously, when you see external people start treating you drastically different, it's also something where it kind of like, I won't say it weirds me out, but it's more something that I start to realize, because obviously when you didn't have much, they didn't really treat you that good. But then now that you have, things that you're doing well, you start to see people treat you way differently. And I guess I have to come to terms with it, because I think that's just how people are in general. So I guess I don't have to put enough emotional weight on it to make it seem weird. So yeah.
I think you said it there at the end. It's not to call it natural, but it's going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So I guess it's more down to how you choose to respond to it, whether you choose to entertain it. And
Of
as
course.
you said, not giving it your energy, right?
Exactly, 100%.
So yeah, I mean, we can definitely circle to the AI platform software
Yeah.
that you're building, because I think that's something A, you're clearly passionate about, and B, something that's pretty dope that you're putting together. So I mean, before anything, tell me a bit about it.
So it all came from one thing I saw, where you kind of want to be solving big problems for small groups of people initially at the start, and then obviously taking it at scale and then solving big problems for big people. One of the big problems that I noticed for a small group of people, which is obviously operators, basically people that do what I do, like, they work for coaches and consultants, they help them scale their coaching programs. A big problem is they spend a lot of time doing that. They spend a lot of time, writing email sequences. They spend a lot of time creating VSLs. They spend a lot of time, building funnels. They spend a ton of time doing all these things. And when I spoke to you a little bit earlier, I think earlier in this video, I was saying a lot of this stuff is all the same shit. Like, there's not a lot of different things that go in. It's all principles. It's all fundamentals. So knowing that all the stuff is all the same things, and I'm clearly seeing these guys are using the templates I provide to them, and they're just remaking it for their clients. I'm just like, why can't AI just do this for them? Like, it can just remake it based on the information they have for their client and just give them the outputs they're looking for. So basically what I decided to do, along with, the partner that I'm working with, is we decided to just come in and be like, okay, cool. Let's get all these SOPs, systems, templates, and, just like general knowledge on how to scale info businesses when it comes to funnels, email sequences, because they're all the same stuff. Why don't we put them into a model and then allow people to give their client information and then use that client information to generate all of these things pre-made, which they don't really have to make any changes, maybe like 10% of changes here and there, and they actually get funnels made for them, email sequences made for them, VSLs made for them, because they all follow the same structure anyways, and they get that done within 5 to 10 minutes. Instead of spending hours and hours actually writing the stuff, paying hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to people to do it for them, they can get everything done within 10 minutes. And we've been able to actually prove that it actually works. Like, I was on a coaching call an hour before this, and we made one of the no-show sequences with that. A no-show sequence is a sequence that you send to people that don't show up to your call. And he made that with that AI. He didn't have to do anything. He just had to put the information in, and then it just created it for him. And he told me he already recouped 7 deals just by doing it from last week. And he did that in 10 minutes. I asked him how long it would have taken him for him to do it himself. He probably would have been like, I probably wouldn't have even done it because I just thought it would be too much work. And he just did it for him. So when I see stuff like that happening, I'm just like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Like, there's a genuine use case for this. And it works decently well because it's all the same stuff. So that's why, like, I'm extremely passionate about it, because nowadays in the info space, no one's really doing it. And it's so odd because everything's so standardized when you think about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, goes back to your background, right? With starting out as a programmer and
Having a way that you're approaching this that is different to the standard,
Yeah.
right? If someone started out with agency to start with, they probably wouldn't even have the idea of the skill set to be able to develop this in the first place.
Yeah, of course.
But tell me a bit about what the plan is with the AI itself, because I'm assuming it's beta test still at the time of
Right now it's
recording.
at beta testing, so there might be some information down below for people that want to obviously test that out. But right now it's at beta, and the goal with this is just to obviously make it as good as possible. Like, we're not trying to like go super mass and go crazy, because it's still a B2B software at the end of the day. So it's meant for businesses that are scaling info products, and they do work with quite a few clients, and they obviously want to make more money from those clients. It's still for those types of people. And the whole goal is to just pretty much like achieve like 5 times the efficiency, working like 90% less of the time. So that's like the main goal we want to do with with this platform. And we're trying to get it to the point where honestly it can be exitable. Like, build something that, can genuinely help people. And then if someone wants to like, continue this and take it to the next level, then so be it. But the goal of it is just to like get it to the point where it's actually really, really good and gives that quality output, where it can genuinely save us time and obviously allow our students to obviously save their time, and then obviously produce good quality outputs, and just almost like standardize the whole info scaling approach so it doesn't take that much time. So yeah.
Would you say that's the big play you're focusing on now at the moment?
100%. That's where I'm putting a lot of my energy into, and it's something where people probably won't see the fruits of the labor until like a 6 to 12 month timeline from now, where you've got all the users on it, you've got people doing really well, you've got people scaling on it, we're talking to people that want to like have equity in it, all that type of stuff. I think it's something where it's like a longer term game, but when I look back on it, I'm gonna see the progress that actually comes through with it. So yeah.
No, 100%. And yeah, as you said, we'll leave links in the description here for
100%.
whatever stage it's at. And, whenever this goes out, it'll be, I'm sure more advanced than now and ready
100%.
for it. But I mean, aside from this AI play, and it might be this play itself, but what generally is next for Muheez?
Uh, I don't know, bro. Because I guess that question was asked before, and thinking about like the spot I was saying that I wanted to be at, but I'm not too sure, bro. I'm just focusing on that one goal, and then everything that happens after that will happen. Maybe you'll see me on a beach in Dubai, like with a Porsche, hopefully, hopefully very soon. But I don't really have like any like external things. I think obviously after that, I'll just go to the next thing. Like, what's the next thing I want to build? What's the next thing I want to put my effort into? And obviously from there, I would have a little bit more resources and capital to make things happen a lot faster. So I think from there, I should be able to like get good at what I'm trying to do and scale it from there.
Oh, it's amazing, bro. And, you know, I told you this yesterday, but just to leave it on record here as well. Like, I've been blessed, and I'm grateful for having been around a lot of guys who were young and, you know, hustling, hungry, smart, ambitious, going after things. And you are very much towards the top of the list of those guys that I've seen from a young age in terms of the integrity you have, the way you come across, the hard work you put in, the way you look out for other people. It's what I told you yesterday, bro. You're someone that I rate very highly, you know, from a young age as well. And to have seen the progress of the last 2 years and see you go from being a kid who was doing well for himself and like trying to escape this situation he was in to seeing the person you are now and, you know, what you're moving towards on a personal level has been sick to see for me, bro. So
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you. Means
yeah,
a lot.
man, huge congrats. And, you know, just to start wrapping up, I think, you know, last couple questions I always like to ask, but if you think back to a version of yourself that was going through a tough time, whatever that was, you know, you can say what it was or you can leave it ambiguous, but what kind of advice or thing would you have to say to them?
Enjoy the struggles, I think, would be one thing. I think no one really talks about the benefits of like going through hard times. And I think when you only focus on the downside and you're obviously really trying to like find everything that's bad about the situation, you're only gonna see bad. But when you try to focus on the good things that come out of it, you'll realize that there are good opportunities that come out of it. It's just how you look at it. So I think that's gonna be one of the biggest things. And another thing I'd probably tell to a lot of people as well too is it's gonna take time, but you genuinely only need like 1 to 2 years. Like, I haven't seen anyone that's put a ton of emphasis on one specific vehicle, one specific system, and I've not seen success when they just put 1 to 2 years of effort into it. I've never seen it before. They're day to day, they're working on it, they're not doing anything else, they're just focusing on that. I've never seen it before. And I didn't believe it because I was thinking to myself, damn, this guy is crazy. Like, 1 to 2 years. Probably thinks it's probably way longer than that. What if I quit? What if I don't? But after being someone that has done that for 1 to 2 years, I can safely say, yeah, like if you do it for that long, there's no way you don't change. There's no way you don't grow. So yeah,
It'll click eventually.
eventually, man, 100%.
Any last story, anecdote, message you'd like to leave the viewer with?
I think I've bombarded them with enough analogies and stories.
Nah,
But,
you've been killing it, bro. And I mean, I just wanted to bring one thought to the table as well, because the last episode I released was with Sue,
yeah,
who you know well as well. And, you know, you guys are a similar age.
yeah,
You know, he's a couple years younger, but come from a completely different part of the world, upbringing, socioeconomic background, view on life
yeah,
on a base level. And you both were able to put in the work, find a similar path in the end in terms of
yeah,
what you ended up doing, who you ended up serving, and both managed to make huge success stories of yourself.
yeah,
So what I read that as, and, you know, reading between the lines, it doesn't really matter where you start. It's just the steps you put in. And I guess in the end of the day, the vision you have for who you want to become
yeah,
ends up determining who you end up being.
No, I completely agree, man. Like I feel like there was this one thing that I heard someone say where it's like there's always the two types of successful people that always end up coming out in this world is people that get either get successful from inspiration or they get successful from like desperation, basically. And obviously, like, I know Sue's upbringing and mine upbringing were completely different. You know what I mean? Like way too many different things. But he got inspired. Like there was so much reason for him to not do the things he's doing right now. But from that upbringing, he got so inspired to do crazy stuff, and he did amazing things. And obviously, from my point of view, I was like, damn, I need to just kind of make it out. And I did that, and now I'm looking at inspiration. I'm trying to like be better every single day. So it's like when I see that type of stuff, people try to downplay it and they try to make it not seem cool. They're like, oh, you grew up rich or you already had money. I think it's so cool, bro, because it's like for those people, there's sometimes there's no reason for them to do anything, but the fact that you still wake up and still work as if you've got a point to prove and you have something to like achieve, it's commendable, man. You get what I mean? Like I think it's honestly just as respectable as someone is doing it from an act of desperation. I don't think there's any much of a difference. I just think it's just mad respect. So yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
was saying that to him on that episode as well, because you're right. It could have gone in so many different ways, could have chilled so easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, as you said, either running towards pleasure, running away from pain, desperation, inspiration. It's, yeah, what you choose to use as fuel and how you choose to react to it and the perspective you give it.
100%.
Well, if you want to watch that other episode with Sue that we released directly before this, who is doing extremely well for himself at a young age in a similar space to Muheez, you can check out that episode right here.